I want to talk about, and we'll finish by 9, is how do you balance family, business and church life? And I'd say with great difficulty, because someone says, how do you keep that balance? Well, once you get it, it seems to get out of kilter yet again. Michelangelo was with a friend and they were picking and poking through a garbage tip. And as Michelangelo was picking around, he came across this piece of marble that was chipped, battered, dirty, and cracked. And he picked it up and he rubbed it and blew on it and rubbed it. His friend said to him, "Why are you wasting your time with that old piece of marble?" Michelangelo said, "Because inside that piece of marble is a little angel and I want to bring it out." In our family, we have, in our kids, for husbands, in our wives, for wives in our husbands, we have little angels. And often we never get to see those because we're either nitpicking, we have unrealistic expectations, we're always critical, and we need to work at our relationships to build our relationships. I was just reading the Maxwell Leadership Bible this afternoon into 1 Samuel. One of the commentaries says that if you can't manage your home, there's no way you're going to manage a business, because that is the real test. And we've been sold the big lie that family, business, actually politics and religion don't mix. But let me tell you, if you allow the political world to not have the influence or the right influence, then they run off on all sorts of tangents. And if we don't allow the right influences in our family and the balance with all these things, then it does affect the way our families operated. Just to give you background, Sue and I have been married, just turned 43 years of marriage. We have 2 boys and we have 4 natural grandkids and 2 adopted, of one of our daughters-in-law who were her nieces who were taken off by the government off her parents. There were 4 kids. Man, it's hard work when they're teenagers because they've already had all those years of bad influence. Man, it's hard to work at it. But they got welcomed into the family and looked after and just treated as if they're just normal sort of grandkids. So it's always hard to get the balance right because there's always something dominating somewhere, in the whole thing. So let me just share 6 points. 1, a husband and wife are a very powerful team. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, it says a 3-strand cord cannot be broken. You get a single strand and you can often break. You get 2 strands, get very difficult. You get a 3-strand cord, very hard to break. A husband and wife with God make a very powerful team. And it's very hard for a wedge to get in amongst it and to break it apart or destroy it. Yes, they might go through issues and disagreements, but the plan is always to try and work their way through that type of thing. And a husband and wife should be supporting and encouraging and keeping the other one focused. It was only many years into my work life, just one day, Sue said, I think this is years into our marriage, I just think I should pray for you every morning before you go out to work. Well, that was a blessing to me, just her saying that. But, her praying for me just sort of, felt empowering, as I walked out the door. That's part of the learning process, on the journey. I talked about the Jimmy Durante story about locking arms, and a family will go through difficult times, maybe a relationship issue, one of the kids gets off track, they lock arms together and work together to build that. But if there is not that locking of arms together, the tension only gets worse. And, what happens is if our marriage or our relationship or our family is going badly, we will take it to work. And it will affect the relationship with staff and with customers. If your business is going bad, you take it home. And it does affect the relationship. So we have to work out what role each of these plays. So a husband and wife are a very powerful team. Number 2, there's no priority with God. I've been taught this for years, that it's God first, family second, and work third. Well, I'm not really convinced that anymore. Ray Kroc, who founded McDonald's, said, "I believe in God, the family, McDonald's." But at work, the order is reversed. Well, I've got two problems with that. What he's saying is that, I'm a different person at home than I am at work. And if I'm that, the staff don't know who turned up today. The family don't know who turned up tonight. And the family's on edge till they work out how the father or the mother is, what mood they're in when they get home. The staff at work are constantly waiting to see who turned up. What are they going to be like? What's the day going to be like? That's not a great way to build a business and relationships and to serve customers on the journey. The other problem I've got is when you say there's God first, family second, business third, you give God 2 hours on Sunday and do what you like during the week. And I've dealt with and worked with too many business people who say the nice things on Sunday and just tear people apart during the week. That is not a great testimony, and that's not building great relationships. So we've got to learn how to manage those two. Number 3, and you'll find this comes up in a lot of my talks, learn to have a yes face in your relationship. You can say no to people with a yes face. We deliver bad news to our kids, to someone in business, very badly. We're not good at delivering bad news, but we've got to learn how to deliver bad news to people. When you do, they accept it far more readily. They may not like it, but they do accept it. I had a business guy, I mentioned earlier, came to me as a global financial crisis got going and said, "What do I do about the global financial crisis?" I said, "Stop watching the news." And he laughed. I said, "No, 3 months before the global financial crisis, I realised I was getting testy at home and fly off the handle sort of, too quickly. And I realised I was watching too much news, so I cut it. And I replaced it. You can't just cut it. You've got to replace it with encouraging things." So I got hold of a daily devotional called The Word for Today. It's available in North America. You Google Bob Gass, who he and his wife do it, or Word for Today. In Australia, the Christian media provide it free for those who want it. But here, I don't know what happens, but it's a great devotional. I then signed up because I came across Joel Osteen's daily devotional. And what I like about it, it's short, but it's always encouraging. You don't know how many days you need an encouraging devotional. You really don't know until you start getting it. Because the amount of negativity, the criticism that come at you, you need these things, to really build you up. And spending time, in God's Word. It was probably early this year, I realised I was really guilty about my quiet times, because now that I work from home when I'm not travelling, in mid-afternoon I decide to have my quiet time. Now here's how my quiet time usually goes. Well, I've got the Bible and I sit down and I close my eyes to pray. Next thing I know, it's half an hour, 40 minutes, I've been asleep. And then something bobs into mind. So I thought, I better have a pen and paper. Someone told me you need pen and paper next to you so you can jot it down so you can get back to what you're doing. So I used to make all these notes. I'm thinking, wow, this is terrible. But what I realised is, if I read the word then or later and think about it, I used to say, God, what are you telling me from this? And I'd close my eyes, I'd go to sleep. But I'd wake up with all these strategies, the solutions to problems or ideas. And then I realised God's speaking to me. That's the quiet time. He's actually talking to me, but I wasn't shutting up long enough for him to speak to me, so he put me to sleep. Well, that was my theory. But I've got to tell you, the stuff that came out of this, I thought, wow, what a great quiet time. I stopped being guilty. And I thought, this is really good. And, find a way that everyone says you've got to do it first in the morning. Well, I tried that. Man, that was hard work. I'd do it late at night, and all I did was get bruised because the Bible kept falling on me. So, I worked out when it would work for me. So I have these devotionals that I get 3 good ones, short, that are really good, that I read in the morning at breakfast, and then I do this in the afternoon. And if I'm still up for it when I go to bed, I might do something else. But that's it. But that's the quiet time. And, I've learned that I'm growing through that. God's speaking to me through that. He's giving me ideas. He's giving me strategies, which is what he wants to do. It's just up to then. I wasn't listening. I had a lot of requests, a lot of times asking for the strategies, but I didn't stop long enough to actually get them. or get the ideas. So, we need to, that's how I started developing my yes face, because someone would then ring me up after and they'd ask this question. I go, well, I've got an answer for you. And they thought I was a genius. I said, no, God's just given me the answer already. I didn't know you were going to ring. So it's interesting how he works. So that yes face is really important. Many years ago, a former president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, was travelling by horseback with a group of men. They got to this swollen river, and they decided that each person would get across the swollen river, one on each horse. A guy in the group said to the president, "Can I get on the back of your horse?" Immediately the president said yes. Each one worked their way with difficulty, and they all got to the other side, and the president and this guy were the last two. On the other side, the group said to this guy, "Why did you ask the president for a lift?" And he said on his face was yes, and on all your faces was no. So what message are we sending out with people? Is it always negative, or they always think they're going to get a no from us? Or are we sending positive messages? Like that echo I explained, what are we sending out as we talk to people, as we encourage, as we build people? Unfortunately, I can't get Joel Osteen Ministries to actually understand that they actually have 3 CDs in a set. But there's a set called Be a People Builder. And the distributor in Australia is able to give me this 3 CD set, Be a People Builder. They are the best stories of how to build people in your life that you meet every day. Because we're so critical of people when someone's angry, but actually when you find out what's happening in their life, you feel really bad for criticising them. And these are just the best stories you will ever hear. I don't know how you can get the set from them, because when I asked for it once in America, they actually gave me one of the talks. I said, "No, you got 3. "Oh, we can't find them." Well, you could if you look, but so I've got the set. So if you're interested, maybe I can organise how to ship a quantity of them to you from Australia somehow. I'm not sure how we do all this stuff. Lorraine will probably panic now because we're selling something else, with the government agency. Anyway, it's a great seed, but get hold of things that are going to help you build relationships. If you don't read anything, you're not going to learn, you're not going to listen. But start practicing things. Sometimes I've got to try, little things, and, to build that relationship with the yes face. Number 4, you don't need to know everything. I thought you did. When I got married, I thought you knew everything. Well, man, that was a reality check as life started. We got into marriage. I thought when you started a business, you knew everything. Man, that was a wake-up call. So we don't know everything. It's a journey. And I came across about 2 years ago this great verse in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29. And it says, "The secret things belong to God, but the things revealed to us belong to us." What I realised is I'm not going to know everything, otherwise I'd be God. But He's revealed to me a lot of stuff that I've done nothing with. And unless I'm going to do something with it, why would He reveal any more to me? So I thought, well, let me start going through the things that He's revealed to me. And you'd be surprised what comes back to memory as you start having these quiet times. And I thought, well, I've got to actually do something with this, start to put it into action. And it's interesting as you start to do that, new things start to come to light. So we've got to be accountable for what we're actually what He's revealed to us, and what are we going to do with it. As you learn, you've got to start breaking bad habits. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, do you know her? She spoke at our church some years ago, and it was she said something interesting. I always got to get something, at least one thing out of a speaker. I get more, most of the time. And she said that if you want to break a habit, you have to do something different 10 minutes every day for 21 days. So I thought I'd try it. After 5 days, I said, this is not working. Then I remembered it's 21 days. 10 minutes. So if you're doing something that's not working, try the opposite for 10 minutes a day for 21 days. And you'll probably find long before it, but I won't guarantee it, you'll start to break the habit. So you have to consciously work, at these things as you get to know them. Number 5, take your family on the journey. I referred this earlier because some of our kids, and even Sue, don't understand the business. After she met some of the people at some functions in advertising that worked for the agency, she said, "I hope I never have to go to one of those again." But I said, "No, it's good you meet them." But one day in the school holidays, I thought, as our guys were in the teenage years, I would take them into work and just allow them to spend the time with some people there in the agency. And they got looked up. I don't think they've eaten so many cookies in their life and had so much soft drink, Coca-Cola, whatever it is. I took them out to lunch, McDonald's, in North Sydney, etc. But the thing was, I didn't get to spend time with them all day, but other people also looked after them. But they had a great day. But they actually got to see that this place that I go to is some mystical joint in the sky, that it's actually people doing things. Then one of the things I learned was very powerful as an agency, but also in Gloria Jeans, we started to sponsor charities in a big way, and we partnered with them. And I used to encourage the staff to get their families to actually come on the day or to volunteer to do things in the charity. And what I discovered is the family's attitude to the business changed in a positive sense. They felt good about the business because we're helping a charity, and because they were involved in it, they did some fantastic things for the charity because they got passionate about it, but they saw that as part of being partnered, with the actual business. So there are many ways you can bring your kids on the journey. Don't resent your kids. I have a doctor friend, and his brother resents that his two kids have done better than they have in business. One of them has become a doctor. He's always wanted to be a doctor. The other one is now a world leader, worship songwriter and singer with Hillsong Church, and his father's always wanted to be one of that as well. I think every kid who did something, he wanted to be that. But let's not be jealous of our kids. I get excited when my kids excel and do better than me, which isn't hard. I get really excited by that because at least something great is happening in their lives. Do you get excited when your kids are able to do something you never expected? Not a lot of positive stuff here. Should get excited. Maybe we don't get excited when someone else excels. We need to get excited as other people excel. One of the big problems in family is when parents, particularly dads, want their kids to take over the business. Now, I don't generally have a problem with that, but I suggest when they say, what should we do? I said, go and get them to work for someone else in a real job. Then bring them in sometime later, because often they come in with no working anywhere else, and they come in and they just order everyone around, make bad decisions. They're terrible to work with, they're abusive. They think, I'm going to report you if you keep doing that, or if you say that to me, I'm going to report you to my dad, or whatever it is. It just does not create a great atmosphere. So learn with kids, when are you going to bring them in? Number 6, when I talked about a vision in the first talk, have a vision for your family. You sit down as husband and wife and say, what is our vision for our family? What do we see in the future that we'd like our family to be? Then work out what are the steps we need to take to work towards that. If you don't do anything, nothing happens. And it's the only way to move forward in that. When we were on holidays, 6-7 years ago, Sue said, we should think differently about our Connect group, our small home group that we have. It's not really small, but it's a home group. This year, just one thing. What should we do as one thing? So we came up with this idea that everyone in the group should write down a major prayer request. We would keep confidential in the group, but we commit to pray for it, each other for it. And we would circulate it, type it out, circulate it to everyone. And most people did, but we eventually got everyone to do it. We started to see answers to prayer. The second year we did it, nearly everything was answered by April. And after we've been doing this a few years, the major prayer requests got bigger, and we started to see some phenomenal answers to prayer. In the first year, I think it was, a couple in our group came one night and said, well, we've prayed over every request and God's given us a verse for everyone on the prayer list. Well, that just blew the socks off everyone. Just one thing just brought this group so close, together. So when we did this one thing for our Connect group, I said, well, what's one thing we could do in our relationship to grow our relationship this year? What's one thing we could do with our kids? I mean, when we get together as a family, we have a great time, but there's never a one-on-one with me and the sons because we've got all the grandkids and everyone's having a great time. And then what is one thing we can do with our grandkids? What is one thing we can do with our giving? What is one thing we can do with our church involvement? So we look through all the aspects of everything, beginning of the year, and said, what is one thing that God wants us to do or change in relation to that? And that actually will continue to build as part of your vision, of where you want to go. That's probably the key parts I want to talk about just on the family, business and church. You have to work at balancing the three. Don't spend all your time at church that you spend no time with family. If you're spending all your time with family but God's left out of that, that's not having a healthy, balanced lifestyle. If work is taking all your time, you've got to work out your way around it. I've got a young guy I'm mentoring, and he spends all night up working. He's so tired by the morning. He said, it's only for a season. I said, it's not. It goes on forever. He said, when I change jobs, it'll change. I said, no, it won't. I can tell him from history that it doesn't. But at the moment, he's not listening. And I said, you've got a young son. He'll be growing up before you know it, and you'll regret the time. No business guy on their deathbed says, I wish I spent more time at work. So you need to understand that if you have to work hour after hour every day, there is something wrong in the business with your thinking. You think you're going to be fired if you don't do that or whatever, or you've got the wrong boss. You need to look at it. You need to make a decision because you've got to be sowing into the business. So when you get home at night and you're on your cell phone, finish the call before you go inside. You're not going to send a great message when you're rolling in, negotiating, hopefully not yelling, but screaming at someone on the phone. Show them that they are the most important people in the world. We used to work long hours in advertising. I'd get home. The kids had dinner early because they were young, hungry early, but I made sure I was home to read them stories. I even got to the stage I used to make the stories up. They preferred those because they wanted to know the end, but I didn't know the end till I got there because I was making it up. They didn't know that. I used to tell all these terrible jokes and they hated them all. But let me tell you, at their wedding, they got up and told the same jokes I told them over the years. I felt really good. So I was getting through. I was trying to create a great time. And at Christmas, those Christmas crackers, do you know what they are? You pull them and they're supposed to make a noise, and out come all those very expensive gifts inside, not. But the jokes, our grandkids get all the jokes and they start reading them. And I go, yes, I've won them over. But, that's where you can create on simple things we can create, great times. And, we expected our kids to come to church, with us. We got them into youth groups. We got them into parts that they could enjoy and grow, up in the church, not to have to sit. We were in a more traditional church and until we got rid of the prayer book. Our young son one night, yelled out at the top of his voice, I'm sick of prayers, can we go home? That's about brought that place down. I felt like saying that's exactly how I'm thinking. In those 10 things to make room for in 2016 or the next year, one of those was to make room for mystery. So you need to work at something different in your relationship. I said to Sue, we need to work out, do something mystery-wise. So let's get our diaries out. And I thought, well, this is not really working. We had to work out a common date in our diary. We could do something. I thought, well, that's not really creating mysteries. Let's go out to dinner now. When are you available? So we got to Valentine's Day. I thought, I'm going to do something different. Not going to even, and it's the simple things that work. So she likes baths. I don't. I mean, I have them, but I don't care. So she had a busy day outside on Valentine's Day, so I said, I'm going to make you a bath. And I put the that soap stuff in. I don't really know how much, a lot in. So I said, you get in that and, you have a nice bath. So I went out and got the Valentine's card that I bought. I actually got it from a supermarket. The newsagent and all those places had terrible cards. The first one I picked up, I thought, wow, this is perfect. So I wrote on it. So she was in the bath. I brought it in and said, look, you have that, you read that. I then went left, and then I went out, and I bought an ice cream. It's called a Magnum in Australia. They're They're not really healthy, but they're very indulgent. So I went and bought one of these, and so I got it out of the refrigerator or the freezer, and I brought it into her and said, while you're in the bath, she's probably sliding around by this stage because it was really slippery because I put too much in. I gave her the ice cream. And so she had a Valentine's Day of just relaxing and, reading the card and the ice cream. Don't worry, I bought an ice cream for me too, so I could have one. But it created a bit of mystery because she didn't know what was coming next, and she really enjoyed it. Didn't you say you did? Yeah, please. Yeah. Yes, she nodded. Yep. The answer's yes. What's the next question? But, the thing is, try and create a mystery in your relationship. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but try to become creative with your kids. Try and create something different. In the end, when you're trying to reach people for Jesus, you're trying to work in a work situation, maybe you've got to think about, with customs, how do you create a bit of mystery? There's a business associate mind that says, where there's mystery, there's margin. And what he means, if you package products together, you create mystery, and no one can compare the price of that package to other packages because there's nothing like it. So where there's mystery, there's margin. And you can actually build margin into things. And when we started our business, one of our guys bought these ugly espresso cups, hand-painted, and they were ugly. And for one of our company stores, and they were still sitting there. Months later, I said, we've got to get rid of these. So Mother's Day was coming. So I said to the manager, go out and buy some baskets and put a set of these mugs, 6 of them at least, in there. No use doing one at a time. Put some coffee, some cocoa, a French press, and cost out every item, full value. It was $126 or something. And we sold the whole 6 of them, baskets, because it was mystery. So they said, what if they don't like the cups? I said, not our problem, it's part of the package. What they do with them is not my problem. So we got rid of the 6. So we created mystery. So we've got to learn to do that in our business, rather than compete one-on-one on price. So anyway, I hope that's sort of some help just on balancing family and work life. We've got a few minutes to go. Any questions?
I have one from the past one about the dream. What is the best moment to include people in your dream?
When's the best moment to include people in your dream? Firstly, and I mentioned it, anyone negative, don't involve. Be careful who you share it with. Understand some family members don't get it. It may not be worthwhile sharing with certain family members. But what you look for, people who are dreamers or visionaries themselves, who can speak life into what you're doing. So what I suggest, if it's in a business category, specific category, I suggest to young people, find some business people you admire and ask them, could you have 30 minutes or 60 minutes of their time? You just want to be able to, you're starting something, you want to ask questions. And go prepared, to ask the questions and take notes. Most key business people will be willing to give you time. Okay, you find the odd person who won't, but most people will, to help young people. So even in the early stages, I would bring people in, but you're not asking them to be partners in the business. You're not asking them to invest in it. You're not asking them to make decisions. You don't want other people making decisions. You're information gathering so you can make your own decisions. So I would suggest early on, but make sure they're people that are going to contribute. I don't think there's ever any time for negative people. Well, hindsight's a very interesting thing. Ask yourself, would you do it? Well, you probably would, but you would probably do it differently. There's a couple of things, and some of them are in my book. One of them is, don't hire people you can afford. Hire people that can get the job done. We hired people that, for low salaries, that were adequate. It actually got us into a whole lot of problems, especially in the financial accounting area. He's a nice guy, but he had limitations. And as it grew, it just had rules. And it created, we probably compounded it by hiring the next person who was a little bit better, but not someone. We probably were better off with one, paying them more than having 3. that probably cost us more, not just in salary, but a whole lot more and a lot of reasons. So one of the things I learned is, hire people that are going to help get you there. There are a lot of people who will come and tell you, we've helped build these businesses, but actually they didn't. They actually came in on the journey when it was already at that size. They don't know the steps you've got to go through to build a business. The second thing, and I'll share tomorrow how you build a championship team, is how to interview people and share with them to really find out where they're at, because it's really crucial that you get the right people, not just someone with a pulse. Now, it's terrible to say that, but there's some people that actually create havoc and relationship issues in your business just because they're the wrong people. So they're probably a couple of key things.
What daily routine, other than the quiet time that you have for yourself, what daily routine do you have to improve your leadership skills?
What daily routine that I have to prove my leadership skills? I guess I listen a lot. I learn from anything. I can watch a program on TV, watch what people are doing, and I learn a principle there that actually helps me. I share a story when I talk to business people about a very old movie called The Gumball Rally, which we watched one night. They race from the east to the west coast of America, no rules. Two of the stars jump in the sports car. That's without the roof. You probably don't have that in Canada because it rains all the time, but they're without the roof, the sports car. And one of the stars jumps in the car with another guy, takes off that rear vision mirror and throws it out the back and says, in the Gumball Rally, there's nothing back there that will help you. See, the rear vision mirror is small and distorts the past. You learn from it, but it distorts it. The windscreen is wide because that's everything that's out there. That's where God's taking us, and that's where we've got to look and think and plan. Forget about planning about the past. Learn from it, because that's where we're going. I got that out of watching a movie. It's not a Christian movie. In our church, the messages that are preached on Sunday, when I first took over the agency, the amount of material in the messages on Sunday that helped me go to work, manage the business, deal with issues and problems from the sermons on Sunday was phenomenal. I had to get hold of, back then it was tapes, then became CDs, and now whatever it is, and used to listen to them again and take notes. It was phenomenal, the amount of input that you will get that's in Scripture. If it's preached, you will get, and if you're listening, you will get. I can read a book, I can just see something and will come to mind, what a great idea. That might help me in dealing with that situation. So I'm learning, it's a lifestyle almost thing. I'm not consciously looking, but I'm open to everything.
When you were running the agency, 200 and plus people, big budgets, professional people, fancy office, big clients, and you left all that to go open a coffee shop, as I gather. What was the vision that you have that took you from the top floor in the fancy world to brewing coffee in a shop? What was the vision that changed that you over?
Well, I think the key thing initially was starting a business that we could build that could generate income that could support the kingdom. In the advertising agency, we didn't own it, so I only could do small things. But when you own the business, you can plan and build a business to do certain things. And we started some idea. In the whole franchise industry, they didn't understand anything about supporting the community. And I was used to it working in the ad agency on McDonald's, because the stores were very much encouraged locally to do support community, schools and all sorts of things. And then the corporation in Australia did a lot of support of charities and things. So we come into Gloria. I knew how well that can help build the business, but you can help so many people. So we came into the business and we decided to contribute a bit of money a month, even though we weren't making any, to support as just a stake in the ground. Then one day we decided to support, I think, 4 children with compassion. Like World Vision has child sponsorship. And then after a few years, we put that up to about 200 children. We presented the concept at our Master Franchise Conference in Kona in Hawaii. the master franchisees from around the world, presented the whole thing, and a number of the countries took children to sponsor. We then did it to our franchisees in Australia who took more children, and then we presented it to our staff who some took children. So suddenly the example just multiplied. We were sponsoring a huge number of children. Now, in the company, very hard for one individual, to write to all those. So we actually had someone appointed to specifically handle all the community work we were doing, but actually write to all the children as well. We didn't. The master franchisees wrote to those, and the staff wrote to them. So the whole thing. That's the reason we started the business, is to make a difference. Did it always go the right way? No. Did we get it right? No. But the intent was always there.
What's the biggest challenge and delight in your business?
The biggest challenge and delight. The biggest challenge, there was a lot of big challenges, but the biggest challenge is partnerships. And I haven't got time to go into how you deal with those. One of my first book, Winning Business, has a chapter on partnerships, specifically for that reason. So I say to people now, if you want to get involved in a business and you need a partner and you need money, and to do that you need a partner, don't. You really have to get involved in a partnership because you share the vision and the passion and how you're going to solve disagreements. 3 young people came to me some years ago and said, we're going to get involved together in a business. I said, how are you going to solve disagreements? They said, we never argue. I said, it's just about to start, because you'll be surprised at wedges that comes in. Unless you really are tuned and you're on the same wavelength, you really have to be careful. That's probably the best summary on that. So that one, to be able to build a business that would actually impact thousands of people, create thousands of jobs, impact people, help the kingdom, actually see shop fitters, franchisees, staff become Christians on the journey, even without preaching. My partner preached a lot to them, but I tried to do it a bit differently. And to actually see them engage with those things. But sharing the values, which I'll share tomorrow, the values of the company, which would be good for you to think about. The words were very carefully selected. When we presented that to new franchisees or staff, they didn't really understand it, but they actually liked it, and they wanted to be part of a business that had those sort of values. So do you want me to finish there now? Got more time for questions tomorrow. It means you've got to come back, you see.